We have got breaking news in the San Francisco area. The San Francisco 49ers have just fired. Kyle Shanahan has just fired Steve Wilks. We were just talking about will Steve Wilks return? Will Steve Wilks return? And I said earlier, it doesn't look right. It didn't sound good. It just, the way Kyle Shanahan deflected the question. It didn't even take Kyle Shanahan a day. He must have went and watched the film like in one day and just said, yeah, you know what? I've seen enough I need to see. We're going to go a different route next year. So that's what you got, man. Steve, it literally, it's not, listen, I see you guys out there saying that it's wild. It's wild. It's not wild. When I tell you that it's not wild, I just had this funny feeling that Kyle Shanahan was going to do this. I did. It just didn't, it did. The Steve Wilks vibe wasn't feeling right. Okay, it wasn't feeling right. You got him, Kyle Shanahan, talking about the pass rush wasn't marrying to the coverage, and so look, I don't think that they bring in a guy like Vic Fangio. I think he went somewhere. I think Vic Fangio got hired, if I'm not mistaken. Leo says bring in Bill Belichick for defensive coordinator. No, this is the answer. This is the only guy that Kyle Shanahan. I believe this is who Kyle Shanahan wants, Chris, and I believe this is who Kyle Shanahan is going to go after. I do. I really do. Look, I don't see, like, Joe Staley is definitely not coming to coach the defense. I don't want that. And then Fangio Collins said Fangio went to Philly. This is correct. But again, breaking news, Steve Wilks has been fired or relieved of his duties. And it's crazy. I just did a whole show about this. COVID-19. Sorry. I just did a whole show, literally, about why do I think Steve Wilks won't be here going forward. And it just didn't make sense, man. And when the players, literally, like, the players were throwing Steve Wilks under the bus, they were throwing him under the bus. Nick Bosa was throwing him under the bus in the best way he could. And now you got this. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Vrabel is the guy. Peachy's saying he's the scapegoat. Look, you could say whatever it is you want. The vibe wasn't right. The vibe wasn't correct. And look, we couldn't stop third and longs this year. It was so many things we couldn't get done, right? Kyle Shanahan, per Tracy Sandler, says it hurt to make this decision. It just ended up not being the right fit. What did I say earlier on the show? I didn't think he just was the right fit. It worked, but it didn't work smoothly. It didn't work smoothly. It didn't work smoothly. I don't know, man. Look, I gotta go look at this 49ers. Let me give me a second. Let me pull up the ESPN defensive stats. I just want to see where the Niners finished in the regular season, because I thought that they finished pretty dang good in the regular season. The Niners in the regular season were the number 2 total. Let me fix that up. I apologize. The Niners finished. No, they weren't even in the top. They were top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They were top 10 total defense and yards. And here we go. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back. I'll focus on total defense. And so when you go back to the 2002, they were number 1. They were only giving up 300.6 yards per game. Now, as far as scoring, that's very important. The Niners were number 1, only allowing 16.3 points per game in 2022. And in 2023, they finished 3rd. So they dropped a couple of spots to 17.5. So it's not like Steve Wilks did a terrible job. It's almost like what you see out there on the football field, right? Like, you see, like, overall they look good, but there were times they look really bad. Like, really bad, guys. Really bad. And I just felt like, I told you, I said in the Super Bowl, when Kyle Shanahan had to call that timeout, that bull stuff story he was talking about yesterday, about I haven't watched the tape yet. That's bullcrap. That was bullcrap. That was bullcrap to me. That was bullcrap. They finished tied for first in interceptions this season as well. So look, it is what it is. K Dot says Breezy, just gotta say this is the first 49ers content. Man, I appreciate you, bro, man, for making me pop that cherry. Pause, but thank you, man. And I don't know if you can't like for us to say that it's a scapegoat. Is it really a scapegoat? Because everybody has been complaining about Steve Wilks all season long. Everybody. Oh, he needs to come down from the booth. Oh, he needs to do this. And the issue is, where was the pass rush this year? We weren't getting sacks this year. We weren't getting any sacks this year. Where was that pass rush? It's crazy. So now the Niners have to make it their due diligence right now. First priority is not Brandon Ayuk. First priority is not Brandon Ayuk. First priority is finding a defensive coordinator. The San Francisco 49ers must find them a defensive coordinator that is going to be able to come in, because now they got to start prepping and preparing for the draft as well as free agency for this particular type of defensive coordinator. My apologies. I'm talking to you guys. I'm trying to put out the breaking news, my breaking news thing. I was on the toilet. I had to jump off. Yes, I wiped, I cleaned, and I flushed. I did, but that's what took me so long to do the breaking news. Who's the realistic replacement? I think it has to be it has to be Mike Vrabel. It just has to be, unless they go internally, unless they do it. Maybe Chris Kosaric takes. Sorry, mosquito killer. My bad. Maybe Chris Kosaric decides to move up. You know, and I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if Chris Kosaric does it. You know, you guys asking me, like, listen, I don't think, in my opinion, and I'm not always right, I don't see Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll wanting to be a defensive coordinator. I don't see that. Oh, not Joe Staley. The Staley from the Chargers? Hell no, I don't want him. Brandon Staley? He should quit. She should just quit. He should quit. Staley should retire from football coaching ever. Like, I don't even want him in the build. I don't even think he bring good vibes. I don't care if he was a good defense. I don't care. Like, he should call it a day. So yeah, man. If I don't think Rex Ryan fits Kyle Shanahan's style, man. Listen, I don't want nobody elderly coaching. I need a young whippersnapper in the building to come in here. And I know, Thomas, you're 100% correct. I know he doesn't want to he doesn't want to do this or whatever or whatnot. How much time I got? I know. I understand. I know he doesn't want to do it. But listen, if they might make him an offer he can't refuse. They may make him an offer he can't refuse. And we'll see. We'll see how that works. I'm gonna bring in Tony. I knew that this was about to go down. It was the vibe that I had, and I could feel it in my bones. And then the minute Kyle Shanahan tried to speak on it, I could feel it. I could feel it. Like, it didn't sound right. I felt like he was bull crapping. You know what I'm saying? So, like, listen, this could be a scapegoat. It could actually be that. I thought the defense played really well for him. I don't know if Richard Sherman wants to coach. Tony, I just text you the link. I don't know if he wants to coach, but I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it at all. All right, I wouldn't mind it at all. All right. So, Tony, what's going on, man? I called this. I said this was gonna happen. We talked about it
Yep.
yesterday, and it is going down. And I think what's most surprising, as you went pitch black on it, brother, you know what's most surprising to me, Tony? It happened rapidly fast.
Yeah. I definitely, you hit it on the head. When you asked me yesterday, I was kind of like, I don't know. Maybe he stays. Maybe they try to tweak some things. I said twerk. um,
Pop it, pop that, pop, pop, pop. I'm sorry.
but like you called it. You know what I'm saying? You called it. And I don't know if you got into this shit about potentially who.
Yes. Yes, I
But
know who I want, but you give us who you thinking. We got some people throwing Richard Sherman out there.
listen, maybe he goes that route. You know, it's someone he could groom
It's somebody he
because he's
trusts. Kyle trusts
yeah,
Richard Sherman.
yeah. So
Hakeem Wright. Kyle trusts Richard Sherman. I'm telling you, um, it's a possibility. But Tony, who's on your mind? I know who I want.
who do you want?
I want Mike Vrabel, bro.
Yeah, it's interesting because we spoke about that off the air. Um, tried to get Mike Vrabel years ago,
Yes,
so maybe he makes a phone call. So we got to see. I mean, you know, listen, Wilks did improve the secondary. We were tied for first with interceptions. That's a positive over
that's a positive.
previous years, right?
That's a positive. But we were
Maybe the front seven took a step back because the back end improved because that was his strength. But listen, the playoffs with Wilks just probably left a bad taste in his mouth.
it's but Tony, the Super Bowl was good. So yeah, the playoffs were bad, but it was bad up front. It wasn't bad in the backfield. Like
Yeah,
those guys were taking plays off. Like they had to have a meeting about players taking plays off. Chase Young
yeah.
was taking plays off. So that's not on the coach, but the coach reacted and did what he needed to do. You know what I mean? And so they fixed it. You get to the Super Bowl, Tony, the defense was playing lights out in the Super Bowl, bro, until the tide shifted.
Now, you said that they called the timeout on the play. I was listening to you and stuff, and he vetoed a call.
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. How involved? No, seriously, I'm being dead serious with you.
I'm with you.
And
I know.
and this is going to prove my point. How involved was Kyle in the defensive game plan?
I think Kyle micromanaged the defense, and that's why it looked so good.
So now this goes back to my point of the playoffs having the bad taste in his mouth, right? So I mean, from day one we were saying, well, this defense don't look right. Where's our pass rush? Something's not right. Why are they running the ball on us? This isn't your typical D'Amico Ryans and Rob Asala defense. It was different. But I will give kudos to him to improving the back end of that defense. 100%.
He
You want
developed those young boys. Definitely.
he did. You want to make him a defensive passing game coordinator? Go for it.
Now we're gonna
To
get a
sit
lot of
there,
pushback from everybody out there, Tony, that's saying that he's just the fall guy. Like he's taking the fall.
I mean,
But
he could be that fall guy. He could, right? He could.
but
But
Tony, but you just told me like look, you just I watched every game and I was at half of them.
yeah,
And the defense wasn't playing with the same juju.
they weren't flying around. They weren't swarming. You didn't see the gang
Tony,
tackling.
remember the argument you and I got into? And you kept telling me that they're not flying around, they're not
Yeah.
swarming. And I'm like, yeah, but they're trying to get used to the terminology or the discipline. Whatever Wilks was having them do, they were trying to get used to it. And that's hard. Wilks was supposed to come in, take the defense and build it. But something went wrong.
Let me ask you this: why is it that the defensive coordinator for every Kyle Shanahan team is on the sideline?
Is that you think it's because Kyle wants them down there?
I think in case of an emergency, he can get right
He
in
can
their
get
ear,
right to and veto the play.
not veto. No, no, no. Just be like, listen, on this, and this, adjust. Do this. Like they're showing this. It's going to come backside to this. Like that's why I think he wanted him here, and that's why Wilkes is a booth guy. All those senior guys like Fangio, they're booth guys. They like being up there. They're in their own little domain. They have their assistants with them that are help charting plays, and they're there. They want to see the aerial view. But I just think it's funny that once that transition happened, you saw a little uptick in the defense and the production, and then now you're saying Kyle vetoed the play on the sideline, called a timeout, and said he didn't like what he saw.
But this is on Kyle. This is Kyle Shanahan's fault. You brought Wilks in.
Yes, he did.
You made that move. We say in Kyle we trust. You bring in Steve Wilks. He does what he needed to do with his strengths, and he improved the secondary. He took Deommodore Lenoir, made him an outside inside guy, right? Damn near all pro. You took Mooney Ward, who was never an all pro in his life, and made him an all pro. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, if Talanoa Hufanga was here, he would have been an
Mm-hmm.
all pro. He
You're
made, as bad as Jair Brown looked at times, he made him look good, right? And so, like, the secondary, other than Isaiah Oliver, who was good up on the line of scrimmage, he was the best tackling DB we had, who's still
mm-hmm.
under contract, by the way, but I just want to put that out there. Like, he's going to probably be released because that was definitely a Steve Wilks guy.
Yep.
This is going to be interesting. Here's why I want Vrabel. Give me Vrabel and bring back Aziz Al-Shire.
Now, just real quick, right? Just to your point, I just want to make a point. You just said all that stuff of how he improved. So, in Kyle's eyes, was this a successful hire for a year to improve the back end of that defense?
Yes, I never said it was unsuccessful because now your secondary, which was very young, gotten a lot better, and you got
Mm-hmm.
Deommodore Lenoir, Talanoa
Mm-hmm.
Hufanga, Mooney Ward going into the
Mm-hmm.
last year of their contracts.
So essentially, he took someone and sat them down and said, "Here's my defensive playbook. This is what I want to do. Can you adjust to this or not?" Remember, there was a delay from when they sat down and when he made that decision.
Yes,
So Steve Wilks agreed to it. Maybe Kyle might have offered him a passing game coordinator job, and he said no. So this was the way to get him in the building to develop that back end of that secondary. Now they're developed, and now he's going to move on. What can he do? Can he bring a variable in and step away from the defense and let the defensive coordinator fully take control? Now that you have a developed secondary, a developed linebacking core, partial developed defensive line, other than the opposite defensive end of Bosa? Or does he promote within and keep doing what he's doing? He goes after a Bullocks. Maybe he bumps him up to a defensive coordinator role. Or goes after, like you said, potentially a Richard Sherman, who's played in San Francisco.
and has a good rapport with Kyle Shanahan.
Exactly. Now
Something.
you're on something, right? Maybe this was his plan the whole time. He needed somebody to come in and develop that secondary. And if it worked out as a defensive coordinator, so be it. He's got his defensive coordinator. The guy he wanted to develop that secondary wasn't coming in as a secondary coach. So he had to bring him in as a defensive coordinator, work with the defense, develop the defense, agree to run a scheme that Kyle wanted, had to learn it, had to adjust to it. Now we're in this predicament.
This is rough.
We have a fully developed secondary. I will say that.
I will, and I agree with you 100%. Um, and if he's the scapegoat, he's the scapegoat. But you have to say that the biggest key that was missing was the ferocious front seven. It wasn't ferocious this year. They couldn't stop the run. They weren't getting to the quarterback, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when you
Correct.
have a guy like Nick Bosa, he has to, like, I don't know what the gap assignments. I knew we were arguing about gap assignments, and we were talking about how Steve Wilks might have these guys thinking opposed to reacting.
Correct.
I remember now. So whoever comes in here has to be like fired up and ready to go after, the pass rush. The pass rush was the issue. You know what I mean? Like the pass rush was the issue. But they were phenomenal in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They were
But
phenomenal.
but let me ask you this, right? And this is where I'm having a tough time with this, right? With the whole Wilkes situation. There was a dip in production from our pass rush for probably the last 7 games,
Yeah.
8 games, a major drop off compared to previous year. Is it coincidence that in the biggest game of the year, the Super Bowl, and these guys wanted to win it so bad, they just went balls to the wall, excuse my French, pause, and they played all out. Played their ass off. They left everything on the field. They had their closed door meeting, maybe with just the defensive line, and said, "Fellas, we got to leave it all on the field this week because we're the ones. If we're going to win this game, it's going to be on us." Is that a possible situation?
I thought Steve Wilks. I don't think Kyle had too much to do with Steve Wilks coordinating in that game. I think Steve Wilks coordinated and the players just bought in and they balled out. I think that's what happened. I think Kyle saw something he didn't like it from an offensive perspective. He didn't like the lineups, and that's when he called that timeout and vetoed the all-out blitz play
Mm-hmm.
that Wilks was going to dial up because Wilks was going to try to generate some pressure, and Wilks was going to trust his guys,
Mm-hmm.
and bada bing, bada boom, right? I think the players were just all in because they were fresh. I think the players were going 100 because it was the biggest game, and this defense held freaking Patrick Mahomes to 19 points, like in regulation. Like that's what they did. You know how hard that is. This defense, name a defense that's done that from the San Francisco 49ers. Come on, help me now. Help me out, cause give me a defense that held Kansas City to 19 points. And I get it. Kansas City had Tyreek Hill on those other two defenses. But I thought
Yes.
Wilks did a pretty damn good job. The players contained. They stayed out there on the edge. And there was a
Yeah.
couple of plays that they just ran out of gas. But that ain't
Yeah.
Wilks' fault.
I again, I don't know. I don't know, Wayne. I'm going to try to watch this game again. My son's got a basketball game tonight after the
Okay.
game. I'm going to try to rewatch this whole game. But I will tell you this. From 2023 to the 24 season, from to the 2022-23 season, this team did not stunt a quarter of the times up front.
He took the stunts out.
Exactly.
Um, they
That's my observation. Just off of the
That's a
season,
good
off the
one.
top of my head. They
That's a good
didn't
one.
stunt nowhere as much as they used to.
That's a good one though, Tony. But Tony, do you think that has to do with the personnel, fam? You got Charles Omenihu, believe it or not, was a damn good pass rusher, and he had the ability to line up inside and outside. And we're not
Yeah.
talking about how much him missing, and I'm glad Charles. No, I don't want to say this. This is gonna sound wrong, but I'm glad he didn't play in this game because I think he would have been a problem because he was going to
Sure.
be playing with a vengeance. And he's pissed off at the 49ers for not re-signing and all that type of, how players do.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that part of it, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just leave it like this. His choice for defensive coordinator is gonna tell you a lot. It's gonna tell you a lot. Whether he goes away from the scheme, whether he goes away from the wide nine.
I can't, but that's not the coordinator.
Sure, it is.
That wasn't Steve Wilks. That's the argument that I'm having. Steve Wilks
No,
didn't want to run no goddamn wide nine.
but that's what I'm trying to say. If he hires Vrabel, Vrabel's gonna come in here and say, if Vrabel comes here when they meet, Kyle, I'm running my scheme.
What? Yeah. I think Vrabel, the only way Vrabel will come here is if he does get a chance to run his scheme. But if Richard
And
Sherman is the guy, I bet you he'll run that wide nine.
And that's why I'm saying the person he chooses
Okay, I got you,
will tell
fam.
you everything where his mind is going. And another thing, just sitting here listening to you, have you ever talked to Kyle Shanahan?
Hmm.
Because let me tell you something, Wayne. This went from uncertain to a 1 o'clock press conference today.
Bro, this went from I ain't watched the film yet, and I expect all my coaches to be back to 1 o'clock press conference today.
I'm,
Like,
I'm just saying.
that's
Like I'm just putting it
ridiculously
out there.
fast. That's
I'm
too
just
fast.
I'm just putting it out there.
But I told you he was gone. Like it
No,
made
I agree with you.
the writings were on the wall. Like
I
it
agree with you. I'm not
it, it
saying you were wrong. You said
no,
it.
no, no, I know, but it was the way Kyle responded to the question. It was a sense of deflection in his response. Like, yeah, I didn't watch the film. Like, who says that? Like, you talk about a coach. You gotta watch the film for a coach. The players gotta execute. So now we're gonna blame the coaching. Shit, Kyle. I mean, luckily he can't fire himself, right?
Just think, just think of this, right? Steve Wilks, two decisions this year. One of them, Kyle intervened, called the timeout, and said he didn't like the look. Can you tie it to what I'm talking about as the first one that he made?
The first all-out blitz he called.
Zero blitz versus Minnesota that went for a touchdown before the half.
Yo, I think Kyle saw that look and panicked.
Bingo, bingo,
But
and he said,
they didn't have well, no, they have weapons. I was gonna say they didn't have a Jordan Addison.
I think it simply came down to this. I think there was no trust there.
There it is. I don't disagree with you. But I think the trust was gone like week 6.
Yeah.
Because Wilks couldn't make adjustments quick enough, remember?
Yep.
And so, like, I know the defense started fired up, blah, 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 whatever. And it just sucks because, yo, when you go back to that Ravens game, Tony, the way the defense fired up in that game, there was no way in hell that they were going to lose that game. But the offense shit the bed that game.
Yeah.
The defense gave the offense 2 points. I just gave you two. I,
Yeah.
I get why people are saying it's a scapegoat, and I don't want people to think that I disagree with that. I see a couple of super chats. I got to get these because I got to jump off here and get to Bleacher Report. This is
Oh,
just a
my
quick
bad.
breaking news. No, no, no. But I just don't. I, the writing was on the wall, and you had to make changes. We talked about what's next on the earlier show with the call-in show. We talked about what's next. And you have to go and you have to reevaluate and say where do we look the most different? They actually look better on offense. They were averaging almost 30 points. So you can't say that the offense was bad. It just they had bad spurts. The defense went from first in scoring in 2022 to third. That's not bad either. But they went from first in total yards allowed to like ninth. And so I don't know what Kyle. I just think it's a couple of things that Kyle just didn't feel like meshed well when it came to Steve Wilks and his decisions and things like that, Tony. And so I didn't know Tony jumped off, but it's all good. So, guys, that was the breaking news, man. Listen, Steve Wilks is fired in San Francisco. Let me get to these super chat contributions. I don't know if you guys can hear the sound effects back there. I'm trying to play them, but I don't know if they're picking up.
I'm sorry. I
It's
totally
all
lost
good.
you.
Whose Y9 was it anyway? The Y9 is I thought was Chris Koceric's plan,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so Tony, if Mike Vrabel comes in here, that's going to be oh shoot, like will him and Kroseric clash?
Listen, I think they are always in the wide nine alignment 24/7, like every play. And I don't have a problem sticking with the wide nine alignment in a third and long situation where you know you have that angle on the edge to
Yes.
pin your ears back and go upfield. But I will say this: there's been times in alignments where they come out in a base 2nd and 7. They're not in a wide line. They're in a basic, I think it's an underfront, if you will, where the tackle's shaded 3, the other tackle's shaded 1 technique on the guard, and the ends are at 5-7 or 5-5, no, 7-5. So that's a small adjustment. That's not like it's not like we're talking about, oh, we're a wide 19. No, it's something that you could work with and have certain packages. And to be honest with you, I'm getting a little bit tired of the wide 9 alignment.
You are? I
I
thought it
am
was
a,
just me.
I am a little bit because I'm going to tell you right now that angle, it looks like teams are taking advantage of it, right? So what happened to Bosa, right, on that read option? He was at such an angle. He went unblocked. He slammed down and got the dive. And what happened?
He overbid, he over pursued.
Yeah. So you're coming from that far out. So now you're spacing. That's giving the quarterback an even larger space to the last man on the line of scrimmage. So now it gives him a bigger area to run with more grass that he could run on. You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, I still like the wide nine and third and long situations, but to keep it as your main one in first, second, third, and short situations, I think they need to go more to a traditional.
Yeah, just
Um,
straight up base alignment, split like base as far as splitting those gaps. I wonder if that'll allow the linebackers to play differently. I don't
mhm,
know. I just know that the wide nine, the fact that we use that alignment, I feel like, we have the speed, but sometimes they're just slow reacting. And
yeah,
that causes us to hit like it you just talked about on that read option, like it was over pursuing from Nick and he just couldn't get there. And then
yeah,
it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten. To be fair, we didn't have the same personnel. This is our worst depth in the front seven the past 5 years, in his opinion. And this is key, right? Because we talked about Amenahu. We talked about Ebukam, who was great at what? Containing the edge. Those guys were missing, right? And then you had your best containment guy get injured in Cleveland Farrell, and then you bring in a pass rushing guy and like Chase Young, who I just thought just wasn't equipped and up to speed right away. And so I don't know.
as far as the depth, I think Cleveland Farrell and Ebukam, as far as setting the edge, were very similar players. I think
Yes.
Ebukam gave you more as a pass rusher. But as far as depth, if Cleveland Farrell didn't go down, I think this is probably one of their deepest defensive lines.
It was
Right?
deep, but when you're not getting the sacks,
That's the issue. Now, what is that? What is the reasoning before that? Now that opens the question to Steve Wilks.
what was
Is
his
there a drop off
right?
from last year to this year with a deeper line?
Oh, it's
Like
sacks. It's
you don't realize, right?
right
Kinlaw
because
was a every down player.
right,
This year he's not. Hargrave and Armstead when they were healthy, when he was healthy.
right.
Now you're pushing back guys that got majority reps and Givens, Kinlaw to the second role.
Good point. Good point. Good point. Hey, that's
It's tough to. I know the injuries decimated this defensive line 100%, but you know it is what it is. It's gone. I'm just going to say this because I know you got a split. Everyone's saying Bill Belichick. Not. I'm going to tell you this.
he ain't coaching. He ain't defensive coaching.
To me, he's going to come back as a defensive coordinator. It's going to be for John Lynch
Wow.
because they had a very good rapport when John Lynch was there. And even though John Lynch was only there for his summer cap, John Lynch still talks to Belichick very often.
That's how we got that Jimmy Garoppolo.
Just putting it out there. If Bill decides he wants to still be involved, I wouldn't fully count it out. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Bro, if Bill Belichick is the defensive coordinator, the Niners are getting a defensive edge rusher with Lawrence Taylor style.
Now, remember what I said to you about that other hire.
Yes.
What is open now? What spot is open? What title is open?
The assistant head coach,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be Bill Belichick. That would be another great mind, right?
Listen, if the
We talked.
chances of that happening are slim. I'm going to be
I
real
know,
with
but
you.
we talked about
But
checks and balances. Kyle needs somebody to check him. His dad ain't trying to coach. That might be the guy.
yep.
All right, all right. I
Now,
could dig it. Miss Cynthia says it appears to be scapegoating, and like I said, Tony and I definitely we get it. It can be. We're not saying that it isn't. He's taking the rep for the Niners losing.
mhm.
But honestly, I think if the Niners won this game, he still would be gone. That's me personally, though.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think they married well, bro. That the
Yeah.
vibe, yo, I'm a big person on vibes, and that vibe wasn't right.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
But we had to deal with it. like we had to deal with it, but the vibe wasn't right.
Just think of it like this: it wasn't a waste
Got you.
because look at the production, not the production, but look at the improvement in the tutoring and the development
I
that
agree.
that back end got. And I'd be honest with you, I'm pretty happy with our safeties next year.
I say you put Jair Brown back at the free safety, you let him ball hawk, and you let Hufunga get back to what he was doing. I know my brother Callie in here said that Hufunga was struggling. Yeah, because he was going from playing wild ball to assignment and it was totally
Mm-hmm.
different. Now, it's
This
possibility he
whole
would have.
defense was different.
I'm
Everything
trying to.
about
The
it.
vibe was off, bro. That's what I'm trying to say. Danny Terry says, "I think we will be okay as long as we keep Chris Kosaric." I even think Kosaric downgraded because he didn't know what the hell Steve Wilks wanted done.
Correct.
Like, I think
It's
there
like
was
Steve Wilks handcuffed this whole defense almost.
yes, and that is the thing. Guys, man, thank you for tuning in, man. This was a quick we did a 35-minute breaking news show. Shout out to Tony, the GM for coming in here, man. I appreciate you, Tony. Guys, I'm about to hop
Thanks for
over
having me.
on Bleacher Report. Download the app. I'm about to do a 30-minute show on some draft prospects. We're gonna get this draft churning right now. Appreciate you guys. Stay up, man. We out this joint. Peace.